All right, everyone, let's get this show started. Welcome to our DevOps office hours. It's April 21st, 2021. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'll be leading the conversation. I'm the CEO and founder of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator, and that means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it together with your team and showing them the ropes. So if that sounds interesting, head over to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call, the format is very informal. You can register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/officehours. We host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a video recording of this session to our YouTube channel. So if you enjoy our content and want to support it, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. We'll also follow up with an email so you can share it with your team. So with that said, I'd like to kick it off for today. Got tons of announcements here. Let's see, just before this call, I hit the merge button on our docs here. Let's see if that got deployed in time for today. Shift refresh, might have to come back to this. Yes, awesome, wonderful. So we have our first tutorial up here on your first environment on AWS using our tooling. This is going through an example deploying the S3 state backend together with an S3 static website. As part of this, we've also updated the fundamentals to extend some context around some of the core concepts here on components and stacks, which are critical to understanding our approach to infrastructure as code. Matt Gowie has been working very hard on all this documentation. He's on the call. Anything you'd like to add, Matt?
No, I'm excited to see what people do with it. I think that this last tutorial that we just put up really kind of ties it all together. It's not the reference architecture. It's not, you're not building some amazing thing on AWS by using that tutorial, but it should give the seed for kind of what this sweetops approach enables. And I think that, I don't know, I'm using this with my clients nowadays. I really believe it's got some great foundations and is a really powerful way to build infrastructure on AWS. So I'm interested what people are going to come up with and the feedback that we get.
Yeah, no, and that hits the nail on the head there with this is not an implementation of a full-on reference architecture. We're building up to that. There is just an enormous amount of code and content that goes into doing a well-built reference architecture the Cloud Posse way. And we are building up the confidence to explain how to do that for people who don't go through our typical engagement process. So stay tuned. I would say in the next couple months, we'll probably have something coming out more for the reference architecture and how to do that. We do also have our Cloud Posse Terraform AWS components coming out. So we already have the latest, some of the current versions of our components have been upstreamed here, but we got a full 18 more pull requests coming in, upstreaming the latest components here. And for us, components are hyper opinionated root modules for Terraform. This is showing you behind the curtain how Cloud Posse has been doing our reference architectures with customers for the last couple of years. And this is a tremendous treasure chest of code. I mean, customers have paid millions and millions of dollars for all of this stuff, and we're just giving it away. And it's on our repo here. So the challenge is always Cloud Posse, when you hit our GitHub, it's like showing up at Home Depot. There's a hardware store full of all the tools and jackhammers and plywood and everything you need to build your infrastructure. But the blueprints, the project planning, the contractors, the process for how to build your house from Home Depot, it's going to take a little bit of experience. You have to have done it before. And we're documenting that as part of this process. But if you need help, implementing it, you know who to call. Go to cloudposse.com/quiz if you want to start that process. Again, cloudposse.com/quiz. Okay. Any questions, excitement, feedback, criticisms of this announcement? All right, let's move on. So yeah, we have now released the first version of the Redshift module. You know, first version of everything could use some work, but we are now rolling this out on a customer engagement. So you'll start seeing more contributions and updates to our Redshift module. And I love this. One of our customers brought this up yesterday on a call. And he says, "Oh, you haven't seen Amazon? There's a guy who's automated the whole process. You can now automatically delete your AWS accounts." Now, this is not a new article per se. It came out in 2019. But anybody who works with automated account creation, Amazon has undoubtedly felt this pain. For example, for our reference architecture, I would love to say, you know, when we make any change to it, we automatically bring up the whole infrastructure and tear it down. But you can't tear down the Amazon accounts by any practical means. These are the steps you need to take in order to do it. I mean, you gotta first, do password resets. You gotta enable, credit card information. You gotta, check off the terms and conditions. You gotta do some phone verification sometimes. There's a lot of things that go into it. So this guy has automated it as much as you would automate the process, like in your CI, automating the browser. So he's done that, and like generating temporary credit card numbers to submit and whatnot. It's asinine. Has anybody seen this before or ever attempted programmatic deletion of accounts?
No, but I
I
can
have
see the
not.
benefit.
Yeah,
I
Sounds
have not,
dangerous.
but shit. Sorry, I'm talking over people as soon as they start talking. I haven't, but I feel like the idea is maybe flawed, and maybe we should just have an SCP, like a service control policy that says don't ever use this account again, and just like leave it in its own silo.
Yeah, archive them. You don't shut them down. Yeah. The other thing that anybody else this trip you up? I read. Wait, what? One Cloud Posse? What? No. Yeah, the challenge for me is naming the accounts always is like, they are pets kind of in the end. We're not giving them totally programmatic. We're not giving accounts UUIDs, you could say. Like, we're calling them prod platform, dev platform, stage platform, test data, whatever. We're not just calling them randomly generated things. So I would like to be able to, reuse that email address. The other thing in Amazon is if the account isn't deleted, well, even if it is deleted, even if you delete the account, that email address is locked in perpetuity. So if you ever want to reuse that email address for an account on Amazon, you first need to change the email address to something else and then delete the account. And if you've already deleted the account, good luck. You're not going to be able to change that email address.
Same with the name of the account.
And the name of the account, yeah.
Yeah, that you can see that when you use organizations. Even when you delete the account, the account name and email stay in the organization as disabled, but stays there.
Yeah, so it clutters that up. I'm not sure. I forget. It's been a while since I've looked at it. But do they eventually garbage collect those? Or yeah, Lauren's shaking his head there.
The one nice thing about actually closing the account is that if you do happen to have resources in it still, like, they immediately stop accruing charges.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to go through the whole process to clean everything up out of there, just to kind of archive it for some perpetuity.
Yeah, and that's the thing about SCPs is you can you can apply to the SCPs, but it doesn't do anything to any running resources in the account. As we found out, we actually disable the SCP, apply an instance, and then re-enable the SCP for certain situations, like certain vendors. In this case, was it Strong DM or no, Zscaler? I think Zscaler doesn't provide an AMI compatible with Nitro instances, so we had to disable the SCP for that and then re-enable.
I could also see this being really useful for modules that are focused on managing the organization itself, right?
Yeah.
So you have a module and you want to test, changes to that module. Well, it's got to create an account, and then you run destroy, and you want it to actually destroy and close the account.
Yeah. I don't know how to do this, or I mean, we need to do that. I don't know how we would do it. The TLDR of this is, no way in hell are we trying this out. This is a ridiculous process, a monumental Rube Goldberg apparatus. But yeah, I do want it for the aforementioned reasons that you said there, Lauren, so we could test that stuff. Shy of that, we just need to keep cycling through and have like auto incrementing account, some pet names or something that we just generate for our accounts. And then we have to keep increasing our account limits or something. This is where somebody could come up with a short-lived SaaS. Hey, we delete your accounts for you. All right, next announcement. Yeah, this is really interesting. Anybody following the open source, like enterprise open source space, there's been a lot going on. Elasticsearch obviously just changed their licensing, prompting Amazon to fork it and come up with OpenSearch. Previous to that was MongoDB changing their licensing, and this wave of relicensing successful open source apps and enterprise apps is real. Now even Grafana, Loki, and Temp are doing it. I don't know if it's in any way a response to Amazon now offering managed Grafana. Maybe. I guess next on this list is going to be Prometheus announcing next week that they're relicensing to AGPL too. No, just making that up. It's interesting. As an open source company, I totally support companies needing to relicense their software to kind of thwart some of the aggressive moves by companies like Amazon in hosting their services. It's sad it has to come to this. I wish we could just all get along.
I believe Grafana has an agreement with Amazon for their hosting of Grafana. I believe they make some money out of it.
They do, yeah. Amazon probably learned that lesson with DocumentDB and how they handle that whole snafu.
So AGPL is the one that's more restrictive when it comes to like it even applies when you're just providing a web service or whatever.
Yeah, it kicks in, I guess, when you're starting to distribute, or especially if you do any linking to the source code, and then it's infectious, it's very viral, and then your code is now subject to AGPL as well.
So you cannot provide like a Grafana as part of an hosted SaaS or something like that without paying, basically.
Yeah, I think
Well, that's the question I have. Like, if you haven't modified it at all and you're just hosting vanilla Grafana, are you able to do that or no?
I asked because I have a project that I worked on that, and I don't think so. They want you to pay their license for commercial use, and it starts at 60K per year. Yeah. So I don't think so.
Also, it's and this is not a criticism of the change to AGPL. I just know that companies are allergic to software. Enterprises and businesses are allergic to AGPL licenses because they are afraid, and there's a FUD around how to use it. So I guess the best thing that might come of this is, well, as more and more companies start adopting AGPL, especially for hyper successful open source projects, maybe we're going to see better sophistication within companies on their understanding on how to use some of these other licenses that aren't MIT Apache 2 based.
Like Grafana is even worse. Like you can't even publish a plugin that is not open source if you don't pay for the commercial license.
Really?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Like, and it's not like we asked, and even the sales team didn't know. Like, they don't seem they make this announcement, but I don't think internally they really have a clue of how they're gonna make revenue out of it.
That thing with the plugins, is that as a result of this change, and you recently just had this dialogue with them?
No, it was prior to that change.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha. That's interesting. Anyone else have anything to add to this? Andy, you guys have a very big adoption of open source. What do you think about this, Andrew Ruff?
This concerns me. I'm going to have to look into this because we don't modify Grafana, we just use it, but it's like my company is putting together a, kind of software factory that can be deployed in customers' environments, and it includes Grafana. Is that going to be a problem for us? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go look into it.
Especially if you're going to start doing any custom plugins there, it sounds like too. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that is the reality here. We use so at Cloud Posse we use another tool, Metabase, and they also have the AGPL license, but we don't redistribute it or modify it in any way. All right.
And that's it's a good question about what counts as redistributing. I mean, if I distribute a Helm chart that I made, but it's using Grafana's own Docker container from Docker Hub, is that redistributing Grafana?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, this is really complicated.
Yeah.
I feel we don't have a court case, so that's why it's ambiguous. Like, as soon as there was one court case, then we'll be set on what you cannot do.
Specifically relating to AGPL? Or
yeah.
Is that true? I haven't heard
Well,
that.
I don't know of anyone. So if anyone knows one. Well, there's the current court case with Elasticsearch and AWS. So we'll see how that lands. We'll end up actually probably determining like precedent for, what can be taken to legal battles or not.
I mean, when you look at the GPL, court cases that are out there, they're I don't know if they're always, but they're almost always about a company who has modified the source code and distributed the modified source code without releasing the modified source code.
Mm-hmm. And that's what they want to prevent.
Yeah. So like even this court case with AWS is like, the issue at hand is not, as far as I understand it, the issue at hand is not, you guys are running Elasticsearch. It's that you guys changed Elasticsearch and then didn't show us what you changed, right? And they did distribute this open distro for Elasticsearch or whatever they called it, but there's other parts of it that they didn't distribute, right? Or that they didn't open source.
Presumably, I guess, maybe on the back end, but
I believe so. I think they have their hands pretty deep in what they're doing with Elasticsearch. And them, rebranding it and forking it is them just doing it a little bit differently.
So the next announcement I was really excited about is the GitHub. So GitHub, there used to be the old Hub CLI, which was, I don't know, was that in Ruby or something, but that it was totally rewritten from the ground up. It's in Go and multi-architecture. They've been continuously investing in it, and now it supports GitHub Actions. So that's really cool. You can now see what the status is of your runs in GitHub Actions on the command line using the new GitHub CLI. So I haven't checked it out firsthand, but that's cool.
Can you launch stuff, or is it just a reporting tool?
So I don't, let's see, I don't know what the subcommands are of it. Anybody know?
I haven't played around with it yet.
Yeah, that looks like I see rerun. So run allows you to rerun.
Oh, this is, I ended up on the wrong client. That was the yeah, so let's see. All client commands. I'm just personally curious here. GitHub Actions. All right, so they've skimped on the documentation there. Unlike the other ones, they provide all the commands there. It looks like they shipped this one a little bit early. It's funny. The next announcement, I thought this was hilarious. Yeah, there's no way Amazon Cloud would ever put a list of people on the website who are responsible for naming their services, because we all know Amazon invests tons and tons on naming their services. Because what do all these services mean, right? Well, they actually do. Can you believe it? They have a section on their website where they're, yeah, a lot of them are ambassadors. They're, yeah. Kirk Rafferty is an official namer. It's phenomenal. And there are a lot of namers. I was impressed. I guess that's why there's so, I mean, they have to have that many namers with so many services that Amazon offers. So.
Thank you, everyone, for attending the quarterly Namer Committee.
Good.
Is that what you're saying? Like a bunch of these guys get together and just like, all right, this is what this service does.
Yeah, what should we call it?
Whoa.
Yeah.
And who was it?
Code Guru.
It's Corey, the guy from Duckbill, who was tweeting about that, right?
Yeah.
He's constantly making fun of them for their horrible naming. So I'm not surprised it's him that's brought this up and found it. His, 30% of his online presence is just making fun of AWS names, and he's like made t-shirts to make fun of AWS, and he's a funny guy.
Oh, this guy, Duckbill Group.
Yeah.
Also a video of Jeff Barr. That's like a must see.
Okay.
You've got the other side of the fence where, like, I think it might be Rancher. I can't remember who, but like somebody was like, yeah, this one's name is Steve.
Really? There's a product called Steve?
I thought it might have been Rancher, but I'm not sure. It's not. I don't think it's a product. I think it's a service as part of a product. But
okay.
Somebody was like, "Yeah, this particular service is named Steve." Yeah, there it is.
Okay, that's the first. I've never heard of anyone doing that. Kubernetes API translator. Yeah, without reading it, what does this do? No idea. And let's see, the last announcement. Well, it's not an announcement. I guess it's more like a Q&A. Ted Vortex was asking if anybody knows of a dashboard product or service so you can visualize the status of all your GitHub actions across your organization. Like, this is key to a CICD product. I don't know of a single service in existence today other than GitHub that doesn't have this. Basically, you have 300 repos all running GitHub actions. Hey, how do I see what's working and succeeding and failing across my organization. You go click 300 repos and go check. So yeah, I guess Mirror Code has become a centralized dashboard across all your CI platforms to do this. And this is interesting. This fits my narrative a little bit. Like, I don't feel like companies should pigeonhole themselves into like, we use Jenkins, so we're only going to use Jenkins. I think that, you should use the best platform for what it is, especially as you're shifting left, and, you have Bridge Crew maybe for your compliance scanning. You got SNCC for your static analysis and code security scanning. You got your GitHub Actions, maybe, or you're doing your linting, and you got your build kites. And I don't know, you have all these systems, but you don't have a centralized dashboard anymore to see that. And I'd never heard of this service, but it looks like this is kind of what they're tackling, is the ability, a single pane of glass view across all of your CI and CD systems. Overall, based on these integrations, looks like it's pretty young, but it does have GitHub Actions at least here. But I mean, yeah.
May I ask, how do you deploy it?
I think it's a SaaS.
Okay, so like, how do you run it on your GitHub repositories, for example?
I'm guessing you install a GitHub app that gives it the credentials. I'm just, dude, I've never even like tried it out, looked at it. I'm just guessing how an app like this would work, right? You would have a organizational secret that would allow it to query all your repos and check the GitHub status on everything you have there, is presumably.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm working on something really similar to this, and yeah, I was amazed to see the same concept being implemented by SaaS. Like, it was an internal project for me, at least.
The thing you're working on is the internal project?
Yeah, it's doing the same thing for the organization that I'm working on.
Oh, nice.
And
are you going to open source it?
Well, I have to. Hopefully, the company will open source it soon. I'm not sure. This is depending on my company, so I'm not sure. I hope so.
And then as part of this, he was pointing to an example. It's a clever hack, but I mean, I would never do this. I open this link in the browser. Was somebody wrote a generator. Static file generator, so you can just have a markdown with the build badges for all your repos, and yeah, okay, that meets the requirements. It's not kind of like UI wise like what I had in mind, but hey, it's the quick and dirty.
My question is why, in the sense that, okay, let's assume a badge is red. That means an action failed. So a check, a release, a build, a something failed. What's your plan there? Like, doesn't somebody get notified? Doesn't something happen? Doesn't the process kick off? Having to look at dashboards to take action on something feels weird.
Well, we have, Cloud Posse. I have, what is it? It got 391 repos. I have no way practically. I can figure it out. I can run queries. I can do it. I'm a smart guy, but I would just love to see, look, here's the status of our repos. Look, this one's failing 80% of the time, or here are all the repos here are all the repos that are currently failing builds. And for the same reason, we would want dashboards in Datadog to see how our systems are doing. I want to see dashboards for how our CI and our CD is doing across our organization. And yeah, it can be anything can be done with a little bit of elbow grease and engineering. We can probably figure out a way to ingest these things into Datadog, and we can do that. But I don't know. I don't know if Datadog right now is like where I'd like to see that stuff.
Maybe a related question. Are you using anything to see all of the issues across your GitHub repos in one place?
Yes and no. So yes, we are, and no, we're not using it. So so we have Zapier. Every time an issue is opened, it goes and creates a Jira issue for us, and we have a board called open source, and we can see all that. and I spend, $30,000-$40,000 a month already, not even looking at that board. And I don't want to spend more money. So I don't look at that board.
Okay.
I didn't know that, Eric. I would like to look at that board. I want to know which of our repos are like hot and are, as a contributor, I should like look at more and whatnot.
So the other thing I started doing is pretty cool is I've started, in GitHub, you can subscribe to every webhook event in the organization, every single one. So I've set up a collector at Stitch Data, and I now send every event in GitHub to Stitch Data and then load that into our data warehouse. So we have lots of ways to report on that stuff now. Every build action, every GitHub action run, every pull request, every commit, everything is going to our data warehouse now.
Octobox is also super helpful for this.
What was that?
It's Octobox. I wrote a link in Slack and on the Zoom chat thingy. Octobox.io.
Oh, yeah. I think I recall this. It's like a UI for helping manage. Yeah, this is like an improvement. I mean, honestly, though, GitHub notifications has gotten a lot better, though. Like, this is like how to get inbox 0. An Octobox, basically.
But it's still a mess. I cannot use GitHub notifications because it doesn't have powerful enough filtering. It also, yeah, I think filtering was the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Like the UI doesn't have filters, but you can write filters if you know how to write them. I don't know.
And Octobox doesn't help with actions, right? This is just like your GitHub notifications too.
I don't know. I haven't used it for actions, but I'm not seeing anything about actions. I'm looking at my dashboard right now. No, I'm mainly using it to see, okay, what pull requests do I have to review? What work is assigned to me? What pull request got updated and I need to re-review or merge or things like that. It has very strong filtering support and it's a lifesaver, especially for people that have to be subscribed to a bunch of things like 300 Kubernetes repos and 20 Helm chart repos and a bunch of other tools and things like that.
Yeah, I know I used it for a while with a lot of these things, then I just get tool overload and I forget someday I just stop using it and I don't know why. But yeah, do check out Octobox if you're struggling with managing your GitHub notifications, because you're a Cloud Posse contributor and your inbox gets 400 emails a day from our organization. So QA, let's do it. Well, actually, Yanni, I see you joined, and yeah, I don't think you're a regular that much, but you did bring up an announcement. I think it's related to a product you're working on, and it sounds like you've kicked the tires a little bit more on this new AWS API for, was it validating IAM policies?
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? And then I'm okay if you give a little pitch too on what your SaaS is.
Cool. Yeah. I thought I'd join today. I was having my lunch listening to you. So maybe I'll give a bit of background first, and then I'll talk specifically about it. So we're a company called Indeni, and for years we've had a solution in the on-prem security space. And recently we've launched a new tool in the IAC security space, in the infrastructure as code. And we started with Terraform with AWS. And basically the tool is meant to be dropped into a CICD flow, and it sits between your Terraform plan and a Terraform apply. And then it analyzes your plan for security issues before that plan goes live, before you actually apply it. And we have a bunch of advantages or differences, I would say, versus other tools. And there are a lot of great tools out there, Chekhov, TFSec, et cetera. but we've decided to go on an approach where we do actually try to leverage quite a bit from the cloud environment and not just look at the code. Our philosophy is that if you just look at your Terraform code, then you're going to miss a lot of information. And as a result, you're going to have false positives and false negatives in your analysis. And therefore, what we do is we actually take your Terraform plan and we merge it with a snapshot of your cloud environment, your target cloud environment, essentially. And then once we merge it, then we do the analysis on top of that. So that allows us to understand all kinds of things like how your code would be impacted by the cloud environment and vice versa.
Hold on, I'm a little confused there. You take a snapshot of the cloud environment before the plan, and then like we merge it, we apply it or confirm it, however we do that with our continuous delivery, like we're using Space, Lift, Scalar, N0 or Terraform Cloud or something. And then where do you pick up again?
So if you think about it, there's a service in the background that keeps snapshotting your cloud account. So it keeps running those API calls and it maintains a snapshot. Yeah. And then when you make the call to CloudRail after your Terraform plan, but before your Terraform apply, in our SaaS, it takes your plan and it takes the snapshot and it merges the two. So essentially it creates a new object model that represents how your cloud account is going to look like if you do the Terraform apply.
Okay, gotcha.
And then it does the analysis on that. So basically,
before you've actually committed it. So before
exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
Before you've applied. So essentially, it can predict how the cloud environment is going to look like, and then it does the analysis. So that's the basic premise of CloudRail, and it's based a differentiator from other tools. Now, if we go kind of on this specific matter, about a month ago, AWS released their policy validation API, which is a really, really cool announcement. You see it there, the AWS announced, you can click on that. And that was like mid-March. And it's really cool because for years, people using AWS, with infrastructure as code, without infrastructure as code, have been struggling to validate their IAM policies. And so all kinds of open source offerings came out, like Parliament, which you guys might be familiar with. And then all kinds of paid tools came out, also doing all kinds of policy verification. And the industry for a while has been waiting for AWS to come out with something that actually reviews your IAM policy and tells you if you're following AWS's own best practices. So a month ago, they released this, what you're seeing here. Now you can pass an IAM policy either through the CLI or through the API, but basically we'll review it and tell you if there's anything wrong with it. And there are 4 levels of things it can tell you. It can tell you you've made a security mistake, which is where they're saying your policy will pass, but it's going to expose you from a security perspective. So that's one option. Another option is error, which is, your policy is just not good. It's not going to work. Warning if they're trying to, get you to do something better. And then there's suggestion, which I haven't come across yet, but there's that too. And they've done a good job there. It catches a lot of stuff and it's very useful. And a guy called Victor, I don't remember his last name right now, Victor Grinnell, released a tool that allows you to pass a bunch of IAM policies to that tool. And that tool will call this API and give you the full result. But there was no way to do it just, easily in Terraform. And so we decided to do it. And we said, you can basically, by using CloudRail, the tool, what it does is it pulls all of the policies out of your Terraform code and it sends them one by one, actually in parallel, to the validate policy API
file, right?
Yeah. So in your Terraform plan, right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we don't look at the HCL code. We look at the plan. Yeah, that's right. And so we pull that and we send it there, and then you see the results. So the ones you have here are the warning and suggestion. But if you scroll a bit down, you're going to see the security and error ones. And basically, you can see here that the API comes back and says in line 6, column 8 of your policy, and you can see which policy because it shows up a couple lines above that. You're using an overly permissive permission and using pass role, etc., we don't recommend you doing that. And they actually also force themselves to have a URL in every finding. So you actually can just, copy that URL and it will explain to you what they think you should do. So that's pretty cool too. So that's something we released today. We were really excited about the API when it came out, and we just got to work on it, and now it's available. And CloudRail is obviously free, and you can easily just go ahead and use it.
That's cool. Yeah. And it just needs like read only to the org, and doesn't need to read any SSM parameters and stuff like that, I assume. Just basically listen.
Exactly. So we use the So we use the view only access policy because that one doesn't give you access to the SSMs themselves, whereas read only does. Yeah. So that's what we use, view only access.
Oh, that's really cool. Huh. And how is the plan file passed to your service as part of a CI process? Now, that's hard to answer generally speaking. I'm just trying to think about how that would integrate with some of the tools that we're using today. So what are the ways you've seen it done?
Yep. So we provide a container. And what that container does is it takes your Terraform plan. It actually reruns it with a custom Terraform build, which I can explain in a moment why we do that. It's something we want to blog about, and we never had the time to do it, but we're going to do it. So it runs your plan through a custom Terraform, and then it reduces
the terms. I'm not are you saying it reruns literally the command Terraform plan, or it processes the plan file? Or I'm just wondering like how this fits in, like with people using TerraGrunt or other things like that, how compatible it is.
Yep. So if you think about it, there's a Terraform plan, and the output of a Terraform plan is an archive. It's a zip archive, basically, with state information and files and all kinds of things like that. So what we do is we take that, and in the container, there's a custom binary of Terraform. So it's very similar to the normal Terraform binary you're used to using, with minor modifications. And what we do is we rerun that plan. So we do a Terraform plan on that same plan, and then we do a show-JSON on it. So what happens is it takes the plan, it recalculates it, just like it did the first time. It recalculates it within the container with small modifications, and then it outputs the same JSON format that you're used to seeing from Terraform show-JSON. And then the container reduces the output considerably. So it only keeps certain bits of information that CloudRail needs to use in order to do its analysis. It throws out the vast majority of information because we don't want to get any confidential information that we don't need. And then that reduced JSON is what gets uploaded to the CloudRail SaaS.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, more so. Unfortunately, I see. I don't. It makes a lot of sense how you implemented it. Unfortunately, I don't see how we would do that together with like one of the partners we're working with, Spacelift, on how to do that. But,
yeah. So that's about to be solved. So I think you're talking about the fact that you can't run a container within Spacelift, right?
For example, yeah.
Yeah. So that's about to be solved. So we're repackaging everything that's in the container. So it's Python code, and the binary and everything is in the process of getting repackaged as a single executable, so that you can drop it into Spacelift, you can drop it into env0, and then run it there without needing to actually pull in another container. So hopefully that's going to be available the next couple of weeks, and I think would solve that concern. Does that sound right?
Quite possibly. Yeah, quite possibly.
Not for Terraform Cloud though, because you can't run custom binaries there.
Well, yeah, no.
Agents, Terraform Cloud, we're actually in the process of integrating with them. You can do it through their agents, where you're using your own remote agents. So it depends. So if you're using the base version, the free version of Terraform Cloud, then you're right. You can't run anything there. Although, Little Burley told me that might be changing too, because they're basically seeing the competition from Spacelift and M0, and they're looking to deal with that, right? 'Cause I think so. The founder, Mitchell, was posting on a Reddit forum in Terraform like a couple of weeks ago, saying that they're trying to figure out how to move Terraform Enterprise and Terraform Cloud down market, so towards the SMB, where they're seeing M0 and Spacelift, right?
Yeah.
They're finally listening.
Wow. Yeah.
I saw that
That's great
Reddit
news.
post. Yanni.
I'm glad that
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're feeling some pressure finally and incentivized to do that.
Yeah. So I think that we might be seeing more capabilities. Yeah. So Matt, you saw that, and he's very defensive in it, but he also understands. And then we spoke with some other people at HashiCorp, and it looks like they're starting to understand that the pricing model, and generally the usability model of Terraform Enterprise doesn't fit SMBs.
You spend $5,000 a month on Amazon, but you spend $15,000 a month on Terraform Cloud to run your Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they're starting to pick that up. But yeah, so you'd be able to run it through the agents, and we're going to produce a document on that soon too.
Cool. Well, thanks, Yanni. We should do another segment to learn a little bit more about the tool. It does sound interesting. I admit that I didn't really see I didn't see the angle or differentiator from Bridge Crew, but as you presented, I understand like kind of the different approach you're taking and why it's complementary maybe to some of the Bridge Crew stuff as well. Yeah,
I think that's one of the areas that we need to get much better at explaining the differences and how it's complementary. I agree with your sentiment.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Cool. So we did have 2 questions today, and I think there's another one in the Slack or in the Zoom chat here if we can get to it. I think it's a pretty quick one to cover. David Lozano was asking, in certain scenarios, we have to bootstrap containers to handle a variation in configuration files for different environments, for example, staging versus production. We've done so by leveraging Docker entry points and conf-d, shell scripting, but for simple, not very complex scenarios. Is there a better solution or anything you can recommend to help avoiding any abstraction layers to the container config management, like an Ansible pull? So to answer this question, I think we need to know a little bit more about your environment. For example, the way I would solve this in Kubernetes is different than the way I would solve this with ECS. And so David, are you still on the call? I know you were on earlier.
Yeah, I'm still here. So basically, in this environment, it would be like to launch containers in ECS. It may be using Fargate or EC2, and how to make the Nginx configuration files the dynamic.
Yeah, no, I totally got you. It makes sense. And honestly, I thought, and it looks like it's true. Yeah. So conf-d is deprecated. I mean, I loved conf-d when it came out. It was rad. And we were using like CoreOS, and you could point conf-d at your etcd, and your containers would automatically reconfigure themselves when your values in the configuration changed. Now, conf-d hasn't been maintained or updated in 3 years, it looks like. So yeah, I would run away from that immediately. And if we were talking Kubernetes, just to give some context of why I asked, is that in Kubernetes, you can mount configuration files, config maps, and secrets to containers at runtime. And then it becomes a question of how you're configuring and deploying your resources on Kubernetes. Like if you're using Helm can very easily templatize your config maps, and then you can parameterize those and mount those at, well, it would just generate the Kubernetes resources at deployment time, or when you render those templates, and everything would work. Now, in your case, ECS is a little bit more limited on this fact. You can't mount config files in ECS I believe, right? So,
You can now mount, I think, S3 bucket files.
oh,
Files from
really?
S3 as config for ECS tasks.
Oh,
Yeah.
no way.
You
Yeah.
can mount M files from S3 only.
Yes. Yes. So maybe it's not,
Oh,
they have to be
N
N files.
files only. Okay. So yeah, so therefore, there is so in the pattern that you're talking about, and I'm not saying this is the best answer either. We've used a lot of Gauntlet as well in the past, which is like confd, but it's still fully maintained. Harry Henderson is in sweetops. He's very active. You tag him, he'll respond in a minute. And Gauntlet is similar to confd, but it's not like confd was a daemon, while Gauntlet is a CLI that you just run. And Gauntlet supports tons of backends. It can support SSM, it can support HashiCorp Vault, it can support any YAML or JSON data source, it can support environment variables.
It's like a generic Helm in a way, you know?
It's basically, yeah, it's like, exactly, great comparison. Though for a person coming from ECS, they're probably not going to know what Helm is, but Helm is basically like a Go templating engine for Kubernetes. Gauntlet is like you take that and we just want to template everything and then support various kinds of backends to get data sources from.
Okay, so this tool, it's able to pull the values directly from SSM, for example.
Exactly, directly from SSM, directly from any HTTP endpoint.
HashiCorp Vault, other things like that too.
Directly from Vault. It's a Swiss Army knife of templating. And yeah, you could probably do something like this in other languages. What I like about this is it's distributed as a multi-architecture binary that you can very easily run in your containers as part of your entry point script.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good tool to do this, because I also was trying to inject some environment variables and do some env subst, that tool
yeah, exactly. So this is msubst on steroids.
Yeah, but with msubst, I cannot like do like conditionals and
No
that type of
conditionals,
thing.
no iterators, nothing. It's just pure like swing replace.
Yeah, it's just getting the environment variable and replacing it on the file, but no more logic than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so Gauntlet is a great tool for that. And I know many people in sweetops use the tool for this, and yeah, it's powerful.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you. I'm gonna take a look at that for sure when I give it a shot.
I'll share it in the Slack just here in case. All right, next we got was there something to add to that? Sorry.
Yeah, this is Vlad. I also look at, are environment variables enough for you? You can use Gauntlet for that. That's awesome. It's actually the first time I'm hearing about it. I typically just use either a file in S3, a config file in the Docker image, something from parameter store or secret store or things like that for this type of vanilla easy file templating. But you can now also look into doing more dynamic-ish stuff based on the environment with Cloud Map, or you can do feature flags, and that helps a lot with rollouts, because changing an environment variable that is, I don't know, 50 kilobytes long can be a pretty risky thing. So you might want to look into these more complex options.
Okay. Yeah.
I do recall hearing about Cloud Map. Is this kind of like Amazon's response to console?
Yeah, I'm not familiar enough.
It's inter-service like communication.
You can basically say I'm running in dev. What database should I use based on, I don't know, some tags, some environment variables and things like that at its most basic usage. I also really like it with feature flagging, because then you can do, oh, a developer is actually accessing the application. Okay, I'm gonna use a totally separate development database for this user only. And that eliminates the whole overhead and huge cost drawback of per pull request or per developer environments.
Interesting. So yeah, that's like if you were writing Lambdas or something and those Lambdas were natively talking to the service discovery endpoints.
Yeah. Yeah, guys. Hi.
Or okay, so go on, Mohammed.
Yeah, guys. I back up what Vlad said. Actually, you can use also app config. I'm not sure if David using the cloud here or.
What did you say? I didn't hear. You can also use what?
AWS app config.
App config. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can. I'm not sure if David using the cloud or using on premise for his.
No, it's ECS Fargate he's using.
Okay, so app config I tested would be a nice like managing of the configuration of the environment variables that you need to pass down. Everything can be done from one place, centralized place, actually like shared services account or something. So
but
also
it doesn't help create like legacy apps that don't read environment variables and want a config file. App config doesn't help with config files, does it in any way?
I'm not sure actually, but it can. I'm not sure if what is the David use case here, but
yeah, mainly it's for Nginx configuration files and Prometheus YAML file.
Yeah, I think app config would cover that, but without templating like Gomblate or something. Yeah.
All right. Let's see, did we cover? Okay, and then there was one last question. We don't really have that much time. I think I'll pause on this. I'll cover a tutorial on the Cloud Posse README next week. I'll leave that on here, and we'll cover that. So we are out of time for today. Andy, can you help? I think there were some questions covered in the Zoom chat. Can you make sure we get to those next week?
Definitely.
Cool, thank you. So let's see here. All right, well, thanks everyone for your time today. Next week, I'll be doing office hours as well as at the regular scheduled time, but I'll probably be on the road in a hotel room or something like that doing it. It's a little different. We are syndicating all of our office hours to our YouTube channel, so make sure you head over to youtube.com/c/cloudposse and subscribe to get the updates. Andy is also cutting up these office hours segments with interesting Cloud Posse explained segments on specific topics, so you don't have to listen to the full hour. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our Slack channel. Go to slack.cloudposse.com and you'll find 3,700 amazing people there talking all things DevOps, sweetops, and stuff that we do. Great place to get help and ask questions. We also have all our office hours syndicated to our podcast. So if you go to podcast.cloudposse.com, you can subscribe to our podcast, however you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, etc. Anyways, talk to everyone next week, same place, same time. Have a great rest of your week.